Hey everybody! So here we are. We get this page here with just the drop element. First thing we're going to do is just wire this up so that when we drop an image in here, it shows up down here. No Firebase, no nothing like that. So let's just take a look at this and see. And I actually copied my Firebase settings in here. Yours are available to you in your console, firebase.console, and if you select your app and you go to project settings, you can scroll down and get your API key and etc. All this stuff that you'll need ultimately to wire this up to Firebase. But first, what we're going to do is just wire this up so that it, when we take an input at this drop zone, it shows up in this ID of gallery. So what I'm going to do is make a constant named gallery, and I'm going to set it to document.querySelector ID of gallery. And I'm going to also get that drop zone, and we're going to set that to document.querySelector drop. And I got to make sure I have my quotation marks there. So now we've got those divs in our JavaScript. And the next thing to do is to actually add on the entire window, I'm going to prevent window.add event listener. I'm going to prevent on drag, I'm going to prevent the default behavior, which would be to open up any image I drag in there into its own tab. So if that's what's happening when you drag and drop, it's because this particular code either isn't there or isn't working as it's supposed to. So we're going to prevent that default drag behavior on the entire window. And then I'm going to add an event listener on the drop zone. And this event listener is going to take in the dragged image and grab a data URL that we can use to display that on our page. And so I'm going to say add event listener on the drop zone, and it's going to be an event of type drop. We'll take that event, and off of that event, we will get a file. We'll say file equals e.data target data transfer. Yeah, there we go. e.data transfer.files at 0. And so that'll be the first file that gets dragged in. We can also set this up for multi-file drop, but we're just going to do one for now. So we're going to have now a file that we get from the event. And with this file, we're going to say, first of all, we're going to restrict the file size. So I'll say file size of this file is equal to file.size. And then we're going to convert that into megabytes by dividing it by 1024 squared, or dividing it twice by 1024. So now file size is going to be in megabytes. And I can say something like if there's a file there, then if file size is greater than 1, then alert file must be smaller than 1 megabyte. And else, if it's the right size file, else we'll say we're going to pass that file into a reader. And I actually have to make that reader up here. Forgot to do that. We'll say const reader equals new file reader. And this is an object that's built into the web browser. And it's here. I've got the document all pulled up and ready to go. A file reader object lets web applications asynchronously read the contents of files. So it's exactly what we want. We want to get the contents of the file. And we're going to actually work with this result that gets returned from that file reader. And so when I say new file reader here, reader, then I can say reader. I'm going to use a method of this reader called read as data URL. And I'll pass in the file, and it'll give me back a URL. So, and then I can use that URL to actually draw that into the DOM. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually add onto this event, onto this reader, I'm going to attach an event listener. And let's see, this event listener will be of type load. So you can see over here, we've got these events available to us on a reader. I could call progress, abort, load. We would want to call progress, for instance, if we wanted to be able to update this, like how close is it to being ready to go. But we're going to just do load. And so when the load event gets called, which is when this has finished reading in this file, then we're going to take that event and do something with it. And we're actually going to take the result of that event, which can be, we can say let file URL equal reader dot result. And result is one of the properties on that file reader object. You can see here result. And so that's going to be a URL. And then we're going to take that URL and we're going to just pass it into a function called add to gallery. And so I'll pass that in file URL, pass it into this function add to gallery, and then I'll write that function. I'll say function add to gallery takes in a URL and does some stuff with it. It is going to make an image element, and we'll say document.create elements image, and we'll say image element.source equals that URL that I passed in up here, file URL. And then I'm gonna actually wrap this in a div. You can see on my page, I've got a gallery ID, and in my CSS, I've got a gallery, which is going to be a flex container, and I've got an image item, which has got a specified width and height. So these will be the flex items that go in that flex container. And my image is set to 100% of the width of that image item, which will be 200 pixels for each one. And so I'm going to also make a div equals document dot create element div dot class name equals image item, and div dot append child that image element, and then I'll say gallery dot append child div. And that's pretty much it for this first step. So now we should have, and I can't test this out on my Chromebook because I can't drag and drop. It's kind of a pain, but if you test this out, it should be working. It was working for me earlier on my desktop. And now we should have a drag and drop gallery. The next step is going to be to take that file and upload it to our Firebase. So come on back in a minute and we'll do that.